Thank you guys for joining us in our deep dive into finance. Today, we're just going to be going over deeply into accounting, investment banking, and other careers in finance. Today, our presenters are our two finance committee directors, Corinne and Maya, and I'm Kelly, the finance committee manager. So, this is just a brief outline of what we're going to be talking about today. Intro to careers in finance, deep dives into accounting and investment banking. These are just the two committees that were previously in BWIB, and so we plan to focus on these two just because most students from UCLA go into these careers after grad, and we just wanted to help and elaborate on those. And we'll also be going over recruiting timelines and other tips and resources. Okay, so first I just listed different careers in finance. So I mentioned that we're going to be going over accounting and banking. And so the big four accounting firms, Deloitte, EY, PwC, KPMG, and banking firms such as Goldman Sachs. These are firms that recruit heavily on our campus. And so we'll be helping you guys get involved in that. And other entry-level positions that are in the finance field are also listed here. I know that Handshake and LinkedIn send emails about these, and so if you ever need help on researching these, we'll be happy to help you guys. And corporate finance is something that after entry-level positions, people usually enter to work in later on in their careers.
So there are a number of different careers in finance besides just accounting and banking. We don't have all of them listed here, but some of the more common ones include private equity, which is a form of private financing in which funds and investors directly invest in companies or engage in buyouts of companies, and they sell them at like a higher price. So an example of a company that in private equity is KKR. Wealth management is another big one. It's a form of investment management and financial planning that provides solutions to a wide array of clients, ranging from affluent to high net worth individuals. And so like your typical banks, such as Morgan Stanley and Bank of America, usually have a wealth management arm. And another common one is financial planning. So as a financial planner, you help individuals develop plans to ensure their present and future financial stability. An example of this is Northwestern Mutual.
Okay, so now for a deep dive into accounting, I'm just going to talk about basically what accounting is. So it's basically the process of recording and analyzing financial transactions pertaining to a business. And then there are four main branches of accounting that could be used in different financial positions, or like finance careers. They don't have to necessarily be within accounting, but financial accounting is what you think of when you think of companies publishing like their financial statements. It's basically just disclosing how the business is doing. That's for investors or creditors. Managerial accounting is useful for internal use. So if you're employed for a company, you would be doing some managerial accounting to do strategic planning or set goals or make sure that resources are being efficiently used. Tax accounting is preparing tax returns in accordance with the IRS rules. You'll do that for corporations or individuals. And then audit is similar to financial accounting, but you're basically evaluating those statements. And that can be an external position with maybe a public accounting firm, or you could be an internal auditor within a company. And so within accounting, you could do private or public. For private accounting, your goal in your career progression might be to work up to a corporate controller or a CFO. Public accounting, you would work up to a manager position or even a partner within the firm. and some pros and cons between private and public, or just kind of the differences between them. Corporate accountants would become accounting experts in their specific company or industry, and public accountants would gain experience working with a variety of businesses, but you could also have a specialization depending on your service line. Um, you would expect more consistent schedules and definitely less travel and um, I guess hours if you were working in private accounting. And you would expect a lot longer hours and more frequent travel with a variety of clients for public. And it is common to start out in public accounting and then kind of gain your experience and then move into industry. You could work for a big four accounting firm, which are Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. They recruit really heavily on campus, so if you're interested in that, it's definitely a really good like opportunity for you. But you could also go for mid-tier. They don't really recruit as much on campus, but they'll still do the recruiting process and they'll be at Meet the Firms. And you can choose audit, tax, or advisory. And I'll just go into kind of the differences between those three. So audit, like I said, you'd be kind of verifying a company's financial statements, and you'll get to see a big picture of the specific business that you're in and understand how the financial statements work. And then there are a lot of exit opportunities for that because you'll kind of gain a wide range of financial experience. Tax, you're doing a lot of tax compliance, but you also get to do some sort of consulting and planning to reduce a client's tax bill. There's a lot of like legal stuff involved with that. You'll have to stay on top of changes in tax codes. But you have an opportunity to build a lot of relationships with your clients and then eventually kind of build and grow your network. And maybe you could open your own tax practice if that's something that you're interested in. And advisory is a more fast-growing service line within accounting. It's slightly similar to consulting, in which you'll be helping your clients solve accounting problems or implement new strategies or software. And some things that you could look into for that would be like forensic accounting, IT audit, personal financial planning, and enterprise risk management.
So next, we're going to do a deep dive into investment banking. So what is investment banking? Investment banks provide capital raising and financial advisory services to organizations. So they help companies raise debt and equity by connecting them with investors. They help firms go public, which is called an IPO. And they also assist in mergers and acquisitions. As an investment banker, you work directly with clients on live corporate level transactions. And this job is part advice, part sales and marketing, and part deal making. So within investment banks, there are bulge bracket banks, elite boutique banks, and middle market banks. So bulge bracket banks are the banks you typically think of, such as JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, etc. These banks usually cover all types of products and industries. And then there are elite boutique banks, which on the other hand are usually smaller and more specialized. And so some examples are Lazard, Evercore, Moelis, and PJT. So if you're interested in investment banking, there are definitely some things you need to consider. Some of the pros of this industry are that you get paid pretty well out of college. You gain a lot of skills quickly. You get to work on live deals. The work is really fast-paced, and there are good exit opportunities. However, investment banking is known for not having the best work-life balance, as you typically work 80 to 100-hour work weeks, and it's a high-stress job. And so investment banking analyst programs are set up to be 2-year programs. And if you decide to stay with the bank, you can progress to an associate, and then a VP, and then a director, and then eventually a managing director. However, a lot of people choose to leave after the 2-year analyst program is over because there are really good exit opportunities out of banking. And so people will go into things like private equity, venture capital, corporate finance, or corporate strategy.
And so next we'll be going over the recruiting timelines for accounting and banking, and I'll be starting with public accounting. So recruiting starts as early as freshman year, and they have these big the Big Four host the freshman leadership programs, and it's really for freshmen to figure out whether they like public accounting and kind of get them introduced to the process of meeting recruiters, talking to professionals, and it's just a resume drop to apply, and some firms require cover letters and an interview, and these are all things that BWIB has resources to help you prepare for. And most importantly, sophomore year is when you would recruit for summer leadership programs or SLPs. And so now the timeline has expedited so that in your sophomore year, you could potentially get an internship offer for the summer of your junior year. And from making those connections, whether you started freshman year or sophomore year, it's just really getting to know the recruiters, having them know your face, and expressing your interests so that at these big events at Meet the Firms, you could just be really building your network and really gauging on like which service line you want to work in, audit, tax, or advisory, or the types of clients that you want to serve. And so, yeah, so sophomore year is a really important year, but if you are a junior or a senior, there are still opportunities for you. These occur mainly in fall and winter at Meet the Firms, and just really my advice would just be to be really proactive in it, in just expressing your interests. They really don't expect you to know that much before starting to work at these firms. Being CPA eligible would be helpful. But yeah, so this is just the recruiting timeline and some things to keep in mind.
So for investment banking, recruiting for your junior year summer typically takes place the winter and spring quarter of your sophomore year. So it's pretty accelerated. And to prepare yourself for this, as a freshman, you can try to get involved in a finance club on campus. And then over the spring or summer, try to get a finance internship. And then as a sophomore, you should start studying finance technicals, as interviews for investment banking are very technical heavy. And then try to get an internship at a boutique investment bank in the LA area. And then winter quarter, every year, the Undergraduate Business Society hosts an investment banking workshop that you have to interview for. But if you get in, you get to go to private info sessions with investment banks that recruit out of UCLA. The Undergraduate Business Society also hosts an investment banking night where some of the banks that recruit out of UCLA come and you can meet them and network. And then applications open sometime in winter typically. So that's the time you need to start reaching out to analysts at firms you're interested in to network, and then make sure not to miss any of the application deadlines online. Sorry about that, I skipped ahead. So next we're going to talk about tips and resources.
So here we have some general interview tips. At our previous BWIB meetings, we've mentioned elevator pitch and resume. And so you can always go back to the BWIB drive and look over those. But for your interview, it's very important to have these things prepared. It just shows the interviewer that you know yourself and your interests, and make sure that you've done research on the role you're applying for and the company that you want to work with. And some general tips to dress business professional. Usually that is in a full suit and closed-toed shoes, and to bring a portfolio with copies of your resume just to give to your interviewer in case they don't have it. And for just to practice interview skills, I think mock interviews are very helpful. They just kind of gauge, you can gauge like the pressure in these situations and kind of learn to think quickly and come up with answers without an awkward silence. And so just be confident throughout your interview and remember to smile. And at the end of your interview, make sure to thank your interviewer for their time and to ask for a business card so that you could respond with like a thank you email or a follow up on the position within 24 hours.
Okay, so for mastering the behavioral interview, which will be for an accounting position, and probably other finance roles that aren't banking won't require technical skills. So for this, the kind of format that the interview will follow will start with an introduction. So probably they'll ask, tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume, and you can use your elevator pitch that you have practiced and it's perfect. And then you'll move into behavioral questions. This is probably only 4 to 5 questions. Um, and they're going to ask you about things like teamwork, problem solving, um, when you had to motivate people on a team, something like that. And this is really just to kind of gauge how you would answer this question so that they know that you prepared, and also generally the behaviors that they ask you about are very important to that specific role, so they want to see that you'll be ready to take it on. um, to answer, you should follow the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, result. If you're not exactly sure how to do that, there's tons of resources online, and I also linked um, a doc that will be shown later in the slide that will go through the STAR method and also a bunch of sample questions that are really common in behavioral interviews. And to prepare for that, just kind of think of several stories that you can easily apply to different behavioral questions, that you kind of know what the problem was and exactly how you solved it, and make sure it has a very positive spin. And then just in case, kind of keep up with the current market news, economic news. You can subscribe to weekly newsletters through email, like the Morning Brew or the Skim. And those are really helpful just to kind of be caught up to date so you're not caught off guard. And at the end of your interview, they'll definitely ask you if you have questions for them. So definitely have questions prepared. And throughout the interview, if they mentioned anything about their career that was interesting to you, definitely circle back and ask them about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the behavioral interview.
So for investment banking, most interviews will have a behavioral portion, but they also have a very heavy technical focus. So all the behaviorals from the previous slide are important, but you need to study to be able to answer the technical questions. So some like the most common basic things you'd get asked about are like the 3 financial statements and how they link, the basic methods of valuation, there's 3 of them, public comparables, precedent transactions, and discounted cash flow analysis. You'll also get asked about enterprise value versus equity value, the time value of money and the discount rates you can apply, how to calculate free cash flow, some of the common multiples used in banking, such as enterprise value over EBITDA. And then additionally, you should be ready with a company you're following, or a company that like you yourself would invest in that you can pitch to them and kind of explain your reasoning behind that. And it's really important to stay up to date with the current market news and industry trends. So there's a bunch of resources, like mentioned before, that you can subscribe to help you accomplish that.
Okay, so these are just a list of some clubs on campus that um, you should take advantage of, especially for these 2 different sectors of finance. So for accounting, the Student Accounting Society, they put on Meet the Firm. So that's just really important for you to be a part of, because you'll only pay like, I think, $10 to go to that. Beta Alpha Psi, and Vita.
There are a number of different clubs on campus that are useful to join if you're interested in investment banking. I'm sorry. These clubs typically help you learn technical skills and also provide you with a network that will help you doing recruiting. Some examples are Bruin Asset Management, Bruin Value Investing, Bruin Hedge Fund, the business fraternities, Bruin Investment and Trading Group, and Mead.
And then a list of more resources. You should be able to access these slides through the BWIB drive. So these are 3 links to a resume template and a cover letter template. These are both provided from Anderson Accounting. So these are what you should use when you do the resume and cover letter drops for the Big 4 firms. And then there's a really comprehensive public accounting recruiting guide that I linked that has a lot of useful information. So check that out if you're interested. And then a skill that would be helpful for accounting is Excel. And you can take an online course or just learn for free on YouTube. Or you can take Management 142A or B at UCLA taught by Professor Ravitch.
For investment banking, I'd say the number one most important resource is Breaking into Wall Street's Mergers and Acquisitions Guide. This just has hundreds of pages teaching you the different technicals you're going to need to know for interviews. Another good resource is the book Investment Banking by Rosenbaum and Pearl. Wall Street Prep and Trading the Street also have a number of articles and videos that will help teach you technicals and like how to do a DCF, for example. So that's all we have for you today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email BWIB. We'll be happy to answer. And thank you for listening.